Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good morning. Mazel Tov to the entire family. It's nice to be back in shul together, to have other people here in the room. Well, I want to start by saying that there are two phrases that people should never use. And they strike me so deeply when people use them, I wish they would never do that. The two phrases are very simple. One is, "You're dead to me." The second is, "You have caused irreparable damage." Both those phrases are phrases we should never use. And if you walk away with only one message this morning, it's simple. It's going to take me about 14 minutes to unpack it, but it's a very simple lesson, and that is almost everything in life is repairable. Almost everything can be fixed. You just have to have a desire to do so. There's always a way back. There's always a course for return. No matter when it happened, no matter what the offense was, no matter how deep the wound is, all is possible if you desire it. It's true of our connection to God. It's true of our connection to our tradition. It's true, most certainly, of returning to who you were before those wounds occurred. It's certainly true of our relationships with friends and with family, with siblings, with partners, with parents, with children. But I tell you this as cautionary, time may be running out. So let me share with you the text from which I learned this deep lesson. One of the greatest moments of infidelity in the Torah comes between God and the Jewish people, and we read about it this morning. No question that throughout the Torah, our people, our ancestors, acted poorly. But nothing compared to what happened in this morning's Torah reading. You can almost hear God saying, after all I have done for you, after all that I did for you as a people, this is how you betray me? You can almost hear Shakespeare, et tu, Brute? And so the text says the following, Vayar ha'am ki boshesh Moshe laredet minahar. Moses was slow in coming down the mountain, and the people worried that he had abandoned them. The Jewish people were worried that Moses had gone off, that he had betrayed them, that he took them out of the land of Egypt only to let them die here by themselves in the desert, and he was nowhere to be found. So first, the Jewish people felt betrayed. They felt abandoned. And their response is what is human, and that is when you feel betrayed, sometimes you betray as well. And then the cycle begins. And then it's an endless cycle of revenge and hurt, of wounded and wounding, over and over again. And so vayikach me'adam v'yetzer oto b'cheret. And so Aaron builds a golden calf. Ve'atay nichali. And God gets angry. Vayichar api bahem. And God wants to destroy them. And then kasher vayihi kasher karev hamachaneh vayar egel. And when Moses came down the mountain and he saw the golden calf, Moses got angry. Vayar Moshe ta'am ki forehu. And he can't understand how they could have abandoned him. You see the cycles unfolding. And he said this to them. Adonai Elohei Yisrael, simu ish charbot Yericho. Understand that there will be punishment for this. Jewish people feel abandoned and they act out. Moses gets angry and he acts out. There is extraordinary destruction that ensues. The tablets are broken. Moses sends the Levites to kill those people who were engaged in this activity. God says, I'm going to send a plague. And the hate grows deeper and deeper. The infection spreads. It gets inflamed. The blood boils. The connections are lost. Hateful things are done and said, and people die. We're reading a wonderful book in the book club this month called Fleischman is in Trouble. It's a book about Toby Fleischman, who is finally free from a nightmare marriage. And in the book, the author describes a particularly ruthless fight between Toby and his wife Rachel. And then he describes this moment after the fight. He says, later that night, as they found themselves in the usual chilly détente that followed their fights, he wondered who was going to restore things to a normal state of tensions. Any of us who have ever been in a heated argument know that feeling when it's over. How are we going to return? How are we going to start that conversation again? How are we going to apologize or even accept an apology? So they, like us, go to our separate corners, and we can't seem to find a way back, to which the Torah says it's simple. It's hard, but it's simple. In fact, it's so hard, in this week's Parashat, God can't even do it. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe panim el panim. God speaks to Moses face to face, as one speaks to one another. Kasher yidaber ish el re'ehu, as friends speak to each other. And yet, says the text, V'hasiroti et kapi v'ra'iti et achorai, that when God goes to the Jewish people, God can't face them face to face. God turns God's back both literally and figuratively on the Jewish people and says, you cannot see my face. I can't even bear to look at you, says the text about God. It's so hard. It's so hard to look at each other face to face after we have been in such an angry argument. But at least God makes a move, and the repair starts, and the reunion begins. A gesture, a signal, a small, maybe even unnoticeable move. God says to Moses, it's time to carve a new set of tablets. It's time to start over again, to do the very hard work of chiseling word into stone. And it's Ibn Ezra that says something so incredibly beautiful. Haim hanir'im, v'lo kain v'lo yir'u pnei rekam, ki hascharim haim hana'arim. Playing on the words of to see and the word fear, yir'ah, and yir'ah, to see and to fear. Ibn Ezra says something possible, that they were afraid of even looking at each other. They couldn't see God's face because they were afraid. You know what it means to feel afraid after an argument. What is the response going to be if you make a gesture of recovery, of reunion, of repair? You're afraid of how you'll be met. What face will you get? Will you get rolling eyes? Will you get a turned back? Will you see arms folded in front of you? And then Ramban, Nachmanides, goes even further. Bikei sheyiyeh ro'eh b'mar'eh mamash. Ramban, Nachmanides, says something powerful. He says, they want an audience with God. They beg for an actual audience to be able to see God face to face. Don't give me the silent treatment, says the Jewish people to God. And this is the comment that is most significant. They want a way back. God wants a way back. And so that begins the recovery. The book of Lamentations says so beautifully, Hashivenu elecha v'nashuv, Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh yamenu kikedem. God, take us back, it says. Let us come back. Let us renew our days as of old. But let's do one thing more. We don't want the relationship that got us into that fight in the first place. We want something holier. We want something better. We want something that's stronger. That is a relationship that can't be broken. Eicha is pleading for a way to reestablish trust, to rebuild relationship, not to go back to the way things were. Because truthfully, they weren't so great. That's how you ended up in that fight in the first place. But to build on what was. The celebrated first chief rabbi of Israel, it was actually the priest state Israel, Rav Kook, in speaking about the way we reconnect with our tradition, with our rituals, he wrote something powerful. He said, L'chadesh et hayashan, u'lekadesh et hachadash. He said that what we have to do is we have to make the old new again, and then the new we have to make holy. The old shall be renewed, and the new shall be made holy. But as much as he was talking about our tradition and our relationship to God, he was also talking, I believe, about our relationships to each other. We need to build on what was. Never forgetting, never dismissing the past, but find a way to renew. And then take the next step, which is to make it holy. Understand that our connections are sacred. The rupture can be repaired. And if done by an expert, sometimes you can't even see where the fault lines were. But the new structure, the new stage can be holier because of the exposure that made us so sacred. Look, I can give you pundit answers about how to reestablish trust in our lives. I can give you a list of things you can do because you know that words are not as strong as actions. I can tell you, be consistent in the response you have with each other after the fight is over. Show compassion and show humility. Be respectful of each other's boundaries. Learn to compromise. Be grateful. Be trustworthy. But none of that works unless you have a desire to return. You're going to have to double down on kindness. But none of that works unless you figure out how to begin the process of return. Realize now, anger blinds, reconciliation requires seeing. Anger destroys, but love rebuilds. Letting go of the anger and the hatred is hard. Remembering hurts. But if we are to become our best selves, supported by those most dear to us, we must find a way to see each other. Warts and all, mistakes and all, offenses and all, injuries and all. But I tell you this morning, nearly everything is repairable. Shabbat Shalom.